All right, so welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. I'm Scott. I'm joined by Rob over here. And today we are kind of getting ourselves up, not just for WrestleMania, Rob, but the kind of WrestleMania season overall.
Yeah.
And what comes after, of course, with the Raw after Mania. Now, let's be honest, mate. The past few years, Raw after Mania...
No?
Not really worth...
Not for you?
Nah, not worth talking about, in my opinion.
No.
It's lost its shine to me, but I do think, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, that there's a bit of a buzz this year because, of course, as there is with everything, the first time Triple H is in charge of XYZ, you know, the first Rumble, the first Survivor Series, the first PLE, and all this kind of stuff. So it'd be interesting to see what happens on the Raw after Mania. So that's what we're going to focus on here today. And, of course, the big part of Raw after Mania is... the returns, or debuts, or call-ups.
Yeah.
You know, they're not moving sideways anymore, are they? They're calling up. NXT is back to being developmental.
I don't like that.
No?
I don't like it. I just think if now it's its own, NXT's the developmental.
It's
again,
gone back to it, yeah.
I hate saying that.
Yeah.
Because they're already developed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But, and I also think there's too much, the buzz about Raw after Mania now makes it its own thing as it's a separate show to what a Raw is.
Oh, like it feels like its own PLE.
But it's its own attraction. The same as you get the WrestleMania week.
I think it's lost its shine, though.
Yeah,
I really do think it's lost its shine.
I think there's too much thing on it. It's like England when it comes to the World Cup. We have to
a lot of expectation. I think it's been dampened. I don't think there was a time a few years ago when I think like I remember like Enzo and Cash showed up and all that kind of stuff. That was great. But a lot happened in that one, and I think, like you say, it's kind of hard to top. So I think. Yeah, some ways they needed to go backwards to kind of rebuild, and I think this is a chance to rebuild. I don't think it'd be as big as that, but I wouldn't be surprised if you had a big return, maybe a big debut, and a call-up. Okay. You know, like, and that's kind of what we were getting to when it was getting really big. But it was kind of, like you say, too much at once. And in this day and age, can you really convince someone to be, not after WrestleMania payday? If you're coming in brand new, big contract, you start at Raw.
Yeah,
you can do with missing a WrestleMania payday, I guess, because you're getting the big contracts anyway. Certain names spring to mind already, and we'll get to them. But I feel like some people would be like, I'd rather just be on Mania than Raw, because I think Raw has really lost its shine to me.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. It's more of how established they are, though. Because you've got someone from NXT, like an average Joe guy from NXT, and he's slowly making his name there, then the Raw after Mania, perfect spot. But then if you've got someone like AJ Styles to come out, he should be a Mania.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Is that a prime example would be Cody? He wouldn't have come out on Raw. He came out at Mania last year to go against Seth. Yeah,
exactly. Cody was never coming back at the Raw after Mania last year. But I do think this year, if anyone can talk people into kind of the tradition of how it used to be, how exciting it used to be, I think Triple H is one of those guys. Now, let's get into some of our... I don't know if they're straight up predictions. They're just kind of speculation out there about a lot of these people anyway. We've got people coming back from injury. We've got, again, call-ups. We've got possible debuts. We've got, many kind of different flavors here as far as surprises at the Raw after Mania. And we might end up with none. But let's kind of get ourselves overhyped, as we do as wrestling fans, and talk about some of our favorites. Have you got anyone that springs to mind?
I think Randy Orton.
Randy Orton. He's top of my list as well.
On his own or with Riddle?
This is the thing, because both of them could be coming back. Different reasons, of course. But it was strange, because obviously they ended their partnership on good terms. It was only because Randy got injured, went away. They were tag champs, right? So
they lost to the Usos, and that's how the Usos became undisputed tag. Is it undisputed tag champs? Is that what
that's what I call it? Yeah. So, but yeah, I think so. They both could be coming back.
Maybe
separate or together. I don't know. What do you think's most likely?
What I would like was Riddle. If Riddle come out first, he got the pop of him coming out. Then he reintroduces.
That's Randy. The bigger surprise. And Riddle kind of plays this kind of like puppy in love with Randy anyway.
But
so
what I want to see is if Riddle comes out, does the whole big spiel, brings out Randy comes back, and then boom, Randy hits him with an RKO.
Oh, and just turns heel straight away.
Off.
Oh, that would be the thing. You know what it reminds me of? DX, when they did Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and then Triple H pedigreed Shawn that time.
That's what I want to see. If we get that.
Because they've got to break up eventually. Like as much as like, bringing them back, it'd be crazy. Because we're talking about could they come back individually and then eventually rekindle that kind of teamship, or especially if they're both ready, or if they're a month apart or something like that, and maybe one's not ready to wrestle, but you could bring them both back close and just be on TV. Then maybe they wouldn't do the RK Bro thing anymore anyway. So it'd be I think merchandise, the music, it was so red hot that it'd be weird not to capitalize on doing it again.
I think it's too late now though. Because
it's died down enough, innit? Yeah.
But it's died down so much. If it comes back, they've now got to rebuild that hype.
And that turn was always going to come anyway. That feud was always going to come.
Yeah.
Mate, I love it. I think that should happen.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm up for Riddle and Orton. I don't know. At the end of this, we'll go through what we think is most likely going to happen out of all of these as well. And I do think, I got to say, that's kind of high up on my list as far as probability goes. Next one I want to bring up is a real feel-good one. Now, I know a lot of people think this could happen at Mania itself, and that's Big E. You don't know?
I don't think so. I think...
he crushed my little heart.
Have I lost you? Have you lost the power of positivity?
I've lost the power of positivity. You drained it from me. Okay, right. So it's been about a year. Mm-hmm. There are rumours, like this could have ended his career, his life. So anything we see from Big E and everything we've seen in the past few months has been positive. Will be positive because of how devastating it could have been. And obviously, don't get me wrong, it's not like he had an easy time. It was rough either way, but obviously it could have been far worse. Thankfully it wasn't. Now I think it sounds like he will come back and he will wrestle again at the moment, and I think around this time there's rumors he's having checkups and stuff like that. Maybe it's too soon to wrestle. Now I know Kofi's injured now, and there's a lot of talk about it. Just could, this is why I think a lot of people think it could happen at Mania rather than Raw, because if it's on Raw he's back on the roster. If it's at Mania it's a moment. So I kind of think it might be more Mania if he's not ready to wrestle. If he's ready to wrestle and ready to go, then I don't see any problem bringing him back as a big surprise on the Raw after Mania. It's
a nice idea. I would love to see Big E come back, but I think if Kofi was fit, Woods is fine, then I think they would do that moment for Raw. But without Kofi, I don't think they're going to bring, because they want New Day. Vince.
But that's so without up, right? If it's not New Day, then it'd be him come back as a solo star, which means he could just return. Even a return though, sorry guys, but I don't know what Big E's theme song is. I don't know. I couldn't tell you how it sounds. So if I heard it, I'd probably go, that's it. But I can't really describe it.
Remember what it was.
But if he does return, whether it be WrestleMania or Raw, you might be watching this after Mania and giving yourself up to Raw, and he might already be back. But he's got to come out with the and say that and even praise himself as a former WWE champion in that intro. I think that's the way you got to do it. It's got to be that iconic return. It's got to be an iconic noise. These returns. That's why the Rumble. We said it before, didn't we? This past Rumble, that the previous Rumble to it really struggled with a lot of crappy and new theme songs that weren't quite established.
I think the other thing of that as well, it was such a long walk down. For the last 2 years that. The first one was long, and then both of them are long, weren't they?
They're both long. Yeah.
So by the time people finally got the song, they were like, "Well, okay, who is this still?"
Yeah.
So that was the other problem they faced. But I think with Big E, I think they bring New Day back as a collective. I think bringing them back separately, I don't think it's gonna work. Okay. Because you got Big E there, then what?
Yeah, I think the New Day thing ran its course to some extent. They need to be separate, and then the way they were still mates, but just on different brands. I like that. And the way that Kofi and Xavier have been going to NXT and all that, I like that as well. Great, but I think I'm ready for them to be a three-piece again. Yeah. So,
but the thing is, what I love is you want them to be a three-piece, but if they become champions, you don't like the Freebird rule.
I hate it. Right. Anyway, before we go into... that's another podcast for another time. Well, we've had many podcasts debating that over the years. Right, I've had Big E. You tell me another one.
Roll off the list.
Okay, all right. Next up on the list is... Now, this one, I don't think anyone's really going to be talking about because the news of them not being with WWE has only just come out, and that's Goldberg. The potential for Goldberg coming back. Because his contract's run out.
I'll be honest, I was bored with the Goldberg. I love the Who's Next from WCW. It was good. It's run its course. He had his moment. His son got to see him wrestle. You're done.
Yeah, I think Goldberg's got his place. And again, we spoke about Goldberg loads on the channel. If you want to hear us talking about it, I'm sure you can find us going more in depth on Goldberg as a character and a performer. But he's got his place, and I do enjoy him in a certain role. But it wouldn't feel as exciting as a return. I think it's the only reason why I put it in there is because I was like, he's technically gone from the company, so it's a bigger deal than usual. It wouldn't feel like that. It would just feel like, oh, we're in that cycle, then Goldberg's back. Like it would feel like that. So it's probably not likely, but then I also wouldn't put it past them that they're going to tie this up and give him a new contract and all that.
I think if he'd done it, it'd fall under a Legends deal.
Yeah, it'd be mad to let him go. Even if you're not going to wrestle, like just for merch and stuff like that, mad.
I think they would keep him assigned to. I mean, I'm sure there's a thing with when you're a Hall of Famer, like, are you still signed? Not your. There's technicalities that you're still signed. To WWE,
there's got to be some sort of like for merchandising and stuff like that. But then, yeah, it's tough. But obviously, you know, rumors that you could go elsewhere. AEW. I know a lot of people, especially AEW fans, wouldn't want that, but it is kind of like reminiscent of WCW in many ways. Some ways good, some ways bad. But that's neither here nor there, I guess, an AEW conversation. But it's, you know, there are positives about AEW that remind me of positives of WCW. And something that did work really well in WCW was Goldberg. So kind of tying up that where you've got Sting and you've been on TNT and you're the alternative and all that, it kind of feels right in some ways.
I think if let's say we have Goldberg back, right, and we put him under another umbrella of him doing something and being spectacular, give us someone that's in a position to be, I don't want to say the next Goldberg, because I hate that phrase, because you're never going to be the next if you're going to be the first you are. But essentially would fill that gap and do what Goldberg done and go on a proper undefeated streak and have Goldberg be that person that drives them.
The only way I can see that fit now is that he somehow gets tied up with Jade Cargill. Just on a you know, when Foley used to come out every time there's a Hell in a Cell to pitch it. Yeah. Like, if somehow you could use him in that way, that'd be kind of cool.
But I mean, that could be WWE, AEW, something like that. But I think if you're going to do it, or even, I wouldn't say, this is the problem, because we're saying NXT's now developmental again, that's what it is. That would be perfect in NXT. Goldberg doesn't have to show up all the time. You can have one person building their career the way Asuka did. And then going on to the main show.
Want to do like a streak versus streak or something in the end?
No, but I just think that building a streak up and then having Goldberg be that person is like, I done this with
almost
a
like
streak.
A coach or like Mick Foley does. Yeah. Okay. Right. The next one, talking about NXT, Carmelo Hayes.
Maybe. Yeah, it's possible. The thing is, though, has enough noise been made
a lot at the moment
to warrant the call up and Raw and SmackDown fans to go, oh, I know days. That falls into we were talking about this at Rumble.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue with NXT at the moment. They be in this limbo of it's not the super indie anymore, and it sort of is developmental. Because you said earlier on about not being development. I think it kind of is for some of these guys.
And it's a shame.
It's not. You need that though. They need it development. They kind of needed two split versions of NXT. They needed the FCW type NXT, and they needed the super indie type NXT, and they've got some weird thing in the middle. But maybe kind of both. I don't know. But anyway, Carmelo, but also the other one, Bron Breakker, is kind of a big thing as well.
I think Bron would be the perfect. When I was literally saying about the Goldberg thing, would be perfect in that. But I'm thinking if you're gonna have that position, surely you just ask family. And then have
and went in the Hall of Fame the year before as well, so they must be on somewhat good terms as well. But I mean, Bron Breakker's been someone who talks about for ages. I think these are the two names, aren't they, in NXT on the male roster, at least to be most likely to be called up. Out of the two of them, who's most likely at the moment?
Bron.
I think so as well. I think at the moment there's a lot more noise about Carmelo because he's the new fresh one everyone's excited about. Whereas Bron, people were talking about him getting called up 6 months to a year ago. So people have just been like, it's coming, isn't it? So it feels like, even though he's more ready-made because he's been waiting for longer, I could see it being Carmelo as well.
It could. The thing is, though, what I would love, it'd be cool if we had, let's say Bron comes up first. He thinks like he's getting his crowning glory. He's finally on like Raw or SmackDown or whatever show he gets put to. And then literally as he's cutting his promo, Carmelo comes out and cuts him off. Because that would be a great way to like, just because you've been called up, well, I'm here too.
Don't forget me.
Both guys are making noise in NXT, and it would be a good way to carry on.
I guess though is the risk when it was the super indie, they always were very good at not doing too much at once and keeping someone down there. Bailey, best example, staying down there on their own. You know what I mean? So they kind of needed someone to kind of carry the flag for that a bit longer. So interesting. Either way to talk about NXT. Right. Let's say next up. Speaking of NXT and when it was the super indie, not that these fully fit in that kind of category, Authors of Pain.
Would they come back though?
So there were rumours that there were talks a few months ago. And the only thing they've done since they left is that weird attempt at a show / federation in the UK that didn't go down.
Was that CYN? controlling.
No, that's EC3 and all that. This was, I think that might have been on the periphery of that. I'm not sure, but this was Wrestling Entertainment Series.
Right.
They were going to put on this show, and it didn't go. Like, it got cancelled. Basically, it seemed optimistic when people were looking at it, the size of the venue and all that. And some of the reports, it looked like it's going to get cancelled, and then it did. Anyway, they were basically behind that, and they were going to perform at it. And it's a shame because I don't know what happened personally between the people involved, but as far as talent goes, I really enjoyed them in NXT. The main roster, not so much. I don't think they were booked that well at all. But the rumor is that if they did come back, they'd be with Paul Ellering as a manager.
See,
so
for me, that's if you get AOP and we get Ellering,
it's a must.
Back, then I think I'm all for it. But the problem, I think their biggest issue was they got called up and Ellering didn't go.
Yeah.
Obviously,
that was always a worry, but I think it was the way they were booked as well. But I think being with Triple H,
he clearly had him for a reason.
Exactly, he did well with him before.
I mean, we got, who was he with? Oh, I guess Drake Maverick. That was who they got put with, and he come out in that stupid.
Yeah.
And then he peed himself. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I just thought like,
you're mixing up two things. They had a real kind of fresh, hot, exciting act, and like, you know, as with all kind of people in life, not just in the wrestling industry, there are things that you're better at and things that you mask and your weaknesses or whatever. Not saying they're weak because AOP, don't beat me up. They're fantastic, and they're marketed and booked the right way. They were so excited in NXT, and I think they could fit that role quite well on the main roster if they really paid attention to it. And I think they'll be exciting to see back. And I'm hopeful the tag division is going to be building after this, you know, after WrestleMania, depending on who's got titles. If they split them or not, I don't know. But come on, like, you could put them ready-made at the top of that division. So, and there's a lot of great tag teams that they could work with as well. So, AOP, somewhat likely to me. I wouldn't be surprised if they came back.
I mean, if they did, but where would you want them? Would you want them NXT or would you want them Raw?
No, back on Raw and SmackDown. Do you think? Yeah. Back. I don't know which one, but back
But the thing is, would they get the buzz? Would fans care?
It's the same way when Triple H brought back a lot of these people, though, isn't it? You know, like, he just brought back NXT people that people weren't quite, you know, familiar with, you know, some of them at least. Johnny Gargano is one thing, but then bringing back, which I think, you know, they're from that era, really, but then bringing in some of the people that he brought back, like Bronson Reed, hasn't really gone down that well.
No, because at one point he was with Miz, and I was like, what's he doing now? He's kind of lost in the shuffle. Really.
Right, let's stick with the NXT theme. Tommaso Ciampa.
I'm for it, but I think keep him away from Miz. Just let Ciampa.
It started to work, though. It started to work. I think they did well with it, but it's a chance for a clean break and just be Ciampa. And Triple H clearly loves Ciampa and protects him.
Don't we
all? Remember him holding on to Goldie now. But
I think if we get Ciampa, and you're talking about tag division, this is prime DIY. This
they've got to do something with Gargano at the moment as well, haven't they? So
if Ciampa comes
and
back,
you know what?
DIY,
we were talking about on the way here, weren't we, about how the Bloodline storyline's probably been the best in modern wrestling. But I said for years that it was a DIY one. They're very close to me. And I think, you know, I'm privileged enough to speak to Ciampa about this, and hopefully can with Gargano as well at some point. But you know what? They could go back into that storyline, put in the main roster, split them up one more time, and have one big payoff at WrestleMania. Why not? Let's do it.
I mean, if he comes back, rejoin him as DIY, and then on the whole build, and
because they did DIY on the main roster for a bit, didn't they? When there was that short time when Undisputed Era went on the main roster as well, and they were kind of working together. So hey, man, I'd be up for seeing it again, and just looking forward to seeing Ciampa on our screens as Tommaso Ciampa. The kind of
just
no one will survive type.
Just keep him back in his colours. Get him away from Miz. Take off that stupid chain around his neck with the Pokemon card or whatever it was, and just give us Tommaso Ciampa, and I'm happy. Yeah.
Okay, right. Sticking to a lot of NXT guys at the moment. Ciampa's not. Don't get me wrong. He's been on the main roster for a while, but obviously cut his teeth there. Cameron Grimes. Picture come out of him recently, looking in really good shape, and I wonder if he's someone that could be called up. I don't think ahead of the other two that we mentioned earlier on, LeBron and Carmelo, but Cameron Grimes, you know, he had a good feud with LA Knight, someone who's doing very well at the moment. So, what do you think about Cameron Grimes coming up?
I'm for it, but my thing would be where'd you play him? Like,
I feel like he would get lost very quickly. Yeah.
And I don't want that to. If you're coming up, you've cut your teeth there. You've done really well to get in the position, make noise.
Yeah.
You come to Raw or SmackDown. There's so many guys there.
It might be better off putting him at the top of the card of NXT instead.
Yeah.
You know,
I think. I mean, Finn Balor is a great example of. He was on NXT, went to Raw and SmackDown. He got the injury. Knew that there wasn't a position for him when he was injured with the shoulder. Went back to him and become the Prince. And what a run that was.
Yeah.
Like, the only person to be able to go back to NXT and make a run like that.
Yeah.
And then come up again and now Judgment Day. It benefited him. So sometimes, just because it looked greener on Raw and SmackDown, NXT is a good place to be, you know? So I would say I'd love to see him come up, but I think stay at NXT. Take the top spot.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Someone's got to be at the top, especially if some of those other names are moving over as well. So, right, let's move on to, you mentioned Finn Balor there. Let's talk about one of his old kind of sort of stable mates. They were never in it at the same time, but I'm talking Bullet Club. And at the moment, I'm talking about AJ Styles. We'll get to the other one in a bit. But AJ Styles, coming back from injury possibly around this sort of time. Yeah. The OC as well, factoring that in together as well. Of course, they were in a feud with Judgment Day and Finn Balor. And it kind of just got put on hold, really. I don't know if they'll go straight into that because we're not quite sure if Judgment Day is still going to be around after Mania. I hope they are, in some way or form at least. But there's a potential there to bring that feud back.
Yeah.
There's a potential for him to come back on his own. I think it's best for him and the OC to come back together.
Yeah, it's a collective.
What are you thinking?
Well, we've got... Obviously, at the time of recording, we know it's not to date this, but we know at Mania it's Edge versus Finn Balor.
Yep.
Obviously, I feel we're going to touch on more of that on the
on our real predictions and build up. Yeah.
But Edge did say, "Bring the demon." Right.
Yeah.
So what I would love to see is, I'm in two minds. So obviously, for our prediction, it'll be more deeply discussed. But if there was a way to bring AJ Styles back and make a phenomenal impact straight away. Two great puns there.
Nice.
You're welcome.
that was really good.
Then have AJ and the OC interrupt that match and make sure the reason that
maybe
Edge
be a
wins.
Mania thing. Okay.
So then if you bring them back at Mania...
The only thing is that I feel like,
Raw.
again, so we'll go into this properly on our Mania predictions if it's not out already. But that needs to be tied up loose ends. No shenanigans, that Edge thing. So that's, we don't want it going on further.
I mean, I said this. I just get this done.
Yeah.
I just want this match done and then no more Edge. And
be interesting to see. But yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing AJ come back. I wonder how much time he's got left on the main roster in WWE. So I really hope they do something significant with him.
The thing is, as well, when you were talking about Judgment Day, they said after Mania they're looking to expand. Because I don't know if you've been looking on Instagram, but Mick Foley keeps putting, he put a video thing up and Damian Priest responded.
Mick Foley's joining the Judgment Day.
So it was obviously to give him a shine on that.
Guys, you heard it here first. Foley's returning on Raw and he's joining the Judgment Day.
But I mean, that would be interesting to see if, obviously who...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential for Judgment Day. I think even that, if they survive WrestleMania, maybe we should go into that next time about... Who we think could join the Judgment Day.
Could be someone that's coming up. It
could be.
Could
be. Yeah, that's a good point, actually, yeah. If they asked it about, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing one of these call-ups join them.
Even if we were saying Ciampa would fit perfect in that
position. Yeah. But you get to a certain level where it's like, you can't not be the leader, So, but then that's where you get into inner stable issues with Nation Domination, Bullet Club, NWO, and all that over the years. So, yeah, there's room for that as well. It opens up a lot of avenues to go down. All right, let's move on to FTR.
Okay.
Now, I know their contracts are coming out. There was a tweet the other day. One of them said that they spoke to the other one. Can't remember which one's which. But they said they spoke to him and they pretty much figuring out what they're going to do. They'll let fans know, whatever. And I'm sure their contract's up in March. If I've got this wrong, forgive me. So I think it's possible they could show up on Raw, contract-wise. I think
it was... So it may have been Dax. That's what he goes on, right? I believe he put it was either on Instagram or Twitter. It was one of the story kind of things. Yeah. And he put a photo up, and in the bottom left corner, there was something with WWE written on it, and people were speculating about that.
I mean, they're just playing the game.
They have to be
playing
pun
intended, I guess, with Triple H. But
I love that pun.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind them But I think now they've done the stuff again. They fell in this problem of they've done what they've done in NXT.
Yeah.
They come up and
there'd have to be a lot of assurances to the tag division.
They had this feud with the Usos,
Yeah.
and they've done this Usi hot thing. Now I love the Usos,
Yeah.
but even that was just like you're making a mockery of two tag
But
teams.
from what we're talking about here, they're not all going to happen on the same night, right?
No.
But all these things could happen, yeah? So we could see AOP, DIY, and a Revival on the main roster.
Right, imagine that just as a tag team.
Just say, if Triple H just sold it to the Revival, look, guys, come back because we're going to repeat what we did in NXT,
Yeah.
but we're going to do it on another scale.
yeah,
Because I'm sure, as an artist as well, you know, you could say wrestlers art, and you know, wrestling's art. You don't want to say, are you going to do the same thing again? That's probably not that challenging. So there's got to be something beyond that. But I think what a nice hook to get fans back into it and reclaim the tag division. I think the Rival would be cool. But again, I'm not quite sure if the contracts do align. But if they don't, forgive me. I would like to see it. Next up, we'll fire through some of these here as well because there isn't too much to go in depth on them because, you know, they've been around the roster. Alexa Bliss could come back, could maybe do something with who might be Uncle Howdy. We're still not 100% sure if this is who Uncle Howdy is. Yeah, but let's see. Alexa Bliss, if she's coming back, the whole Bray thing's up in the air at the moment. And if that is the case, if that's the case and Bray's not going to be around, whether it's injury or whatever else, then you have brought back the former Bo Dallas, he needs to do something. Yeah. So maybe just lining him with Alexa, which looked like might be the case about a month ago anyway when we last properly saw Alexa. Maybe that's the way to go. You can survive if Bray's on the shelf for 3 months or Bray's left or whatever else. A way to get around it is to use Alexa Bliss with I was going to say Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy. Yeah. So if that does happen, is that how you'd like to see it? No. Or do you want it to be the goddess again?
I just let Alexa be Alexa and let it organically happen. Like, she was great as the goddess. Yeah. Then when she became this, what would you put it under? The Bray Wyatt.
Or the Lily stuff and all that, yeah.
And then don't get me wrong, that Lily stuff was good at the beginning. But they was just like, oh, we can market it. And then it become a marketing tool, not
rather than
story.
Yeah. I think they just lost their way with a lot of things went wrong. Bray went and they kept changing their mind on certain things. Yeah. And like you said, they focused more on the marketing aspects and things like that. For me, I do think there's scope for it to be just Alexa again. Yeah. But I think there's also something more could be done and tie up the loose ends with the Bray stuff as well, even if Bray's weirdly not involved. So I wouldn't be opposed to it if it was done properly.
Yeah, I'm happy. Look, if we get to see Alexa on the screen, I mean, she's a phenomenal wrestler. She's one of the best women's wrestlers in my opinion.
Yeah, and we've said it over the years on the podcast, but character work may be the best in the company sometimes.
Yeah. So and promo work, heel or face. So I just think if we get her back and it's in that she's comfortable, she's ready, and all that, I think just give her the crazy gimmick, but just don't tie it to anything. Just let her be crazy, and we don't need a reason for it. And then slowly, if it is to do with Bray and the Uncle Howdy stuff, let us see it. But you know, she had that moment where obviously the Bray, the butterfly, whatever it is, the firefly buzzer thing, and then she'd just zone out, and I loved it, but
again, it went nowhere. Like, wow. But then again, you said all about the Bray Wyatt stuff. But again, another conversation for another day.
Exactly.
Sticking with the women's roster, another quick one, just because there wouldn't be much to kind of assume of their role just yet, but possibly Brandi Rhodes.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised if she didn't come back at all. So
I can see it, but my thing is in what role or capacity?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think when she was with WWE, even though she was trained as a wrestler, right? But she done ring announcing.
You know what they could do? If Cody loses, he loses his head, and he thinks he might get his ball and go home, and Brandi comes in to be like, nah, we're gonna rebuild you. You know, that's how they could do it.
See, I do like that idea, but I think story with Cody keeps saying he wants to finish the story. What I want, and obviously I know this is talking about spoilers and all this sort of stuff, but if Cody can somehow beat Roman, and then it's Brandi the one that announces on Raw his entrance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be cool. Introduce him as the champ.
Yeah,
okay, that's cool. I like that.
People know who she is. So
yeah.
It's a big moment for
and she was an announcer, like you said, so yeah.
So, and I think it ties in, but I don't know. She's a good valet.
Yeah,
very good. Valet.
I think they work well together. I really do.
So
the whole Nightmare family, I think, was really cool as well. But right, let's move on quickly to another woman who is a May. Anyway, Naomi. I think that'd be huge. I think in my opinion, you should bring her back and you should put her at the top of the division. She was a credible champion before. She was up and down the upper mid card towards the main event, and she's like also someone like, I guess, Carmella, someone that's been used in various roles in the upper echelon of that card, but she's never fully had that time where, you know, like Carmella didn't either. Sorry, she had, you know, she was champ for a bit, but like that was once, you know, like so. Naomi, I think she could really be positioned that. It's a great way to kind of put it in the contract to get her to come back. You know, I don't really know the behind the scenes of all that, but I would assume there's a bit of negotiating to be done. So I think that'd be a good way to hook her. And I think she could really do well. Of course, could she go in with a bloodline? I don't know. But even if you bring her back as just a solo, I think there'll be enough buzz building off. They left as equals as a tag team, as champions, don't get me wrong, but let's be honest, if we're looking at their two careers, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné is the bigger name, but it doesn't mean that Naomi isn't great and can't capitalize off of this at the same time. So I think her coming back is the only one that did come back and did it on that platform, because Mercedes gone elsewhere. I think it'd be a chance for her to take some of Mercedes' kind of hype and use it for herself.
Yeah. So I want to see her back, but I think she's coming back at Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank?
Yeah.
Like to win it?
I think there'll be a surprise announcement, and she'll
that'd be cool.
Because I think
especially if it's going to be in London, UK, of course. Yeah.
You're going to need something big. The crowd will lose their minds for it.
Okay.
So I think Money in the Bank is
that'd be cool. Return. I like that. Yeah. I think it'd be good for her to be on that stage coming back at Raw with a focus on her, you know, so because it'd feel special because of what, you know, the kind of inner workings of the business and all that. It'll kind of feel bigger. Same as Cody. When Cody come back, he wasn't the Cody he left as. You know, so it'll kind of feel somewhat similar to that. Obviously not the same sort of time and career progression to have in between, because she hasn't done anything as far as wrestling goes. But there we go. I mean, in that period, I don't mean her entire career. She's done plenty. Right. I think we've got 3 last names I want to kind of quickly touch on. Eric Young.
As if only if you bring in SAnitY back, then I'll take Eric Young.
Which, then therefore copy and paste for the rest of the SAnitY members that aren't there. So, I'd like to see it, but it might feel like stacking the roster at this time. Same as some of the other names we went, like Cameron Grimes, might just be too many people on the roster.
I mean, if you're going to bring Eric Young back, send him to NXT.
Yeah.
You're going to need people in NXT to, if you're going to take people up from NXT, you need to
fill that void, like we said.
Refill that, stack it up again.
And then let's get into 2 of the more exciting ones. I think we'll start ending on. Now I don't even know what to refer to him as. Do we call him Zack Ryder or do we call him Matt Cardona? How likely do you think it is that he's coming back?
Chelsea Green's there now.
I think it's very likely.
The problem is this.
Yeah.
If you bring him back as Zack Ryder, he falls back into Zack Ryder.
Yeah.
If you bring him as Matt Cardona,
that's not who he was there.
People are like, well, that's Zack Ryder.
I think this is what I think they should do. Bring him back, and he fully leans into I'm going by the name of Zack Ryder, but he makes it known. Out there, I was known as Matt Cardona, and I was the king of the indies. Just like he's basically now being like, I'm the ex-WWE superstar. He's playing into that. I'm like John Cena. Like he's the John Cena of the indies is what he's trying to be, right? And it's worked so well. Yeah. And he's done all this crazy deathmatch stuff and stuff like that. For him to then pretend he's an indie darling in WWE, I think would be genius. Just same character, but reversed on the opposite side. Yeah. And you can come back as Zack Ryder with hints of, I am Matt Cardona, but the Fed won't let me use that name. Like, they can play up to stuff like that, you know? Like, don't even say the name, because he probably would want to keep Matt Cardona and not get it copyrighted so that he can use it in the future. Maybe that might be something he thinks of, and he thinks benefit is to keep Zack Ryder here, Matt Cardona outside there if I do leave again. So I think come back as Zack Ryder, because that kind of makes those who haven't been aware of his journey familiar with what's going on, but he's a hybrid of the two characters. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, or even playing off of what you said, like, you know who I was out there, but I've got a lot of stuff to do that Zack Ryder couldn't do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make Zack Ryder do the stuff that I could have done.
And he can play up to he can make a joke out of the stuff like Drew rebuilding himself, finding himself and coming back as a new Drew. He can play up to that. And as a heel, even though it's true, it is true. That is exactly what Cardona has done.
Yeah.
But when a heel tells you it, you go, nah, that's not true. And as fans, we can all go, you ain't done it. But we all know, we're all in on the joke. You kind of did the same as Drew, you know, so, but we get in on the joke, Drew's a bigger deal than you. You didn't deserve it. You know, he could literally pretend he was a super king of indies and stuff like that. And that he was indie darling and everyone loved him. And they do with a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But like as a character, he's a heel. So like, that's what I think they should do.
It's weird that we're comparing Drew to Matt Cardona.
Yeah. But like
right.
he's reinvented himself, man. He's been incredible. I'd love to see him back and do like. I loved the woo, you know. I loved all that stuff. It ran its course. Don't get me wrong, and they kind of missed the boat with it.
The thing is, though, if you bring back Cardona, do you bring back Hawkins?
You don't need to anytime soon. But again, I'm not opposed to it. I like them together as well. So
as together, I just don't like Hawkins on his own. Like that's not disrespect to him.
Yeah. He works very well with.
You know, he had the only thing that made him credible was one as a edgehead. Then he done nothing.
Yeah.
Then he had that losing streak that
but
eventually
played into him being back with Zack though. So I get you. Okay, now let's end on a big one.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
The Switchblade. Jay White.
Yeah.
Been talked about for years, just like Kenny Omega was. But this one feels likely to me. Because he hasn't shown up anywhere yet.
Right.
And there's so many storylines we can get into. The OC, the Bullet Club stuff, whether it's Finn or AJ he follows into, or just does something completely different, or Cody Rhodes. Maybe I'm talking myself into it, but I do feel like it is kind of likely. He's always rumoured, as many New Japan stars are, around the Rumble, because a lot of their contracts run out then, and everybody gets excited about Wrestle Kingdom. They suddenly remember who these people are, who don't usually watch Japanese wrestling and stuff like that. Ourselves included, we're not always watching it, don't get me wrong. But yeah, there is that big hype about the biggest star at that time because of Wrestle Kingdom, and then the Rumble comes, you go, he's coming, and he didn't.
Yeah.
But can he be coming in WrestleMania season?
Oh man, I would love to see it, but again, and I don't want to look down on WWE fans, right? You get online in the wrestling community is you got AEW versus WWE fans, and then you have fans that are solely for WWE and solely for AEW, right? And I think Jay White is an AEW, I won't say guy.
It feels right, AEW.
But he feels,
he does.
He
feel,
goes that direction.
Yeah.
I think if he goes WWE, great.
Yeah.
But are fans going to know who he is?
I don't know. A few years ago, I think WWE, there was an argument for them in the world they were in to be like, we don't need Kenny Omega, but like we can make something out of him, and we don't need Jay White, but we can make something out of him. Yeah. Now, I think to set a precedent and be like, you know what, this is a war. Like we're gonna get the biggest free agent out there, and you don't sign him. Like just that alone, I think it would push them. I think there's extra stock on his name now because of AEW, you know. So, and like you say, I do feel like he probably fits better in AEW. Same as when the rumors of Kenny all those years ago in the Bucks, it was like, oh, would it be ruined? Shinsuke coming in, AJ and stuff like that. Same sort of thing. Japanese kind of roster coming over to the US. How would it work? I think they can do something with Jay White. Naturally, the easiest fit is AEW. But can WWE make him a superstar? Yes. So
they have that ability to do it. It's just, where do you go? But I mean, it just, you know, just thinking Jay White versus Seth. Like, you know, and then you got AJ Styles there. As you said, you got...
There's a lot they can do. But yeah, you have to get the WWE fans' competition to understand who he is and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be people... I'm not saying he's going to come out to crickets, but...
I don't think he'll get the AJ Styles pop.
It won't, because AJ was around for so long.
Yeah.
But it's the most comparable person, I think, really. Because the rest of them in that league of like how over they were globally, but on an indie scale or in Japan, you think Balor and people like that, they came in to NXT. And I don't think that's happening with Jay White. So
I hope not. It's that issue of even Finn would have been too big for NXT. Yeah. But he came to NXT. Like he could have gone. The problem as well though is if he didn't do that and he went to Raw,
but NXT was fun.
He would have got lost.
NXT was exciting.
Yeah. So
it's not anymore.
You know, it's the booking of Jay White's too big for this version of NXT.
Yeah.
But then is he big enough to be
on Raw? Yeah. Like that's why you need the super
hard,
indie back. You know.
Like, oh man.
But I think, like we said, they could make him a superstar. They could craft him into WWE, Jay White, the WWE superstar. Yeah. I'd be excited to see what he does wherever he goes. But seeing as this year, Raw after Mania, I really hope is a big one. I really hope he's the creme de la creme and the icing on the cake for that.
Yeah.
Let's say it is like the years when it was kind of last popping off and they had several things. Let's pick our most likely return from injury, most likely.
Randy Orton.
Me too. With Riddle?
I think the way we've said.
Okay. I think it should be that if it can be that.
Perfect.
Call up.
Bron.
Me too. I think it's most likely to be Bron, and probably best time to keep Carmelo in NXT and give him that a little bit longer. Not I'm saying he needs it, but NXT need it basically. Female star.
In general?
Most likely, yeah.
The thing is, if we say Alexa, I just think she's returned before.
Yeah.
I think the bigger pop would be Naomi.
Yeah, but Naomi probably fits in, like you say, in general, really, because she should probably fit into the kind of like massive return,
and
really.
I think if she's going to do that, it's like the Hardy return.
Okay, let's stick her into the next category then of just basically big, whether it's massive return like that because of controversy. Contract. Let's say this category is contract. People coming back to the company or have never been there, like Jay White. Who's most likely?
I would say it would be Naomi, definitely to come back. But I do think she's going to come back at Money in the Bank. I think that's that prime.
Okay, so you think overall, Cardona, Naomi, Jay White, the most likely to come to WWE is Naomi, but you think it'll be at Money in the Bank?
Yeah.
And if it was at Raw,
I'm not opposed to it.
Who would it be? Who's more likely if it was at Raw?
Maybe Cardona.
Yeah, I just thought it's got to end with a massive, main event. Like the person attacks the world champion, or the US, or like, I don't know.
The thing is, if it was Jay White, now it would end great with them attacking. Let's say it's Cody, right? And even if it isn't, it's Roman. But then people are going to be like, "Well, who's Jay White?" That's my concern and my worry. I don't think.
And no disrespect to Jay, but let's be real. Like certain sections of the fan base will be like that, you know, regardless. 100%. So, and that's WWE's job to kind of explain. But yeah,
I just struggle with the idea of it. Jay White getting a mega pop, and then if it's Cody, he'd get, because people will be like, "Well, who is it?" Then they'll be booing him if he attacks Cody and being, "What is attack Cody?"
Yeah,
and he would be for that reason.
Yeah, it'd have to be a heel as well.
Yeah,
has to be a heel.
So
okay, right. Hard. Well, that's it's been a great conversation, Rob. I think I'm most excited about. Well, I've been saying this a lot lately. This is the most I've been excited about XYZ in a while, and that is the same for Raw after Mania. I hope I'm not let down. We have kind of hyped up a massive amount of returns here that we might get none of them, but even if we got one or two, I'd be pretty pleased with that Raw, I think. So yeah, we're going to be covering, of course, a lot of things over WrestleMania. Depends when you're watching this, guys. But we'll be covering, of course, WrestleMania itself, some of the shows around it, and of course, Raw after Mania. We're going to try and take a deep dive, especially if it is popping. We're going to want to do a little bit of a review or instant reaction or something like that to it as well. Stick with us on this channel for build-up shows, predictions and previews, recap and reviews, and instant reactions to certain shows. Loads of interviews and loads of other videos like this one here as well. Hope you've enjoyed this new format for us. I've been Scott. This one over here has been
Rob.
And we really do hope you've enjoyed your time here with the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. Please subscribe. Let us know in the comments who you think is coming back. Who would you like to see coming back? Who's the most likely for you? If you were a betting person, who would you be putting your money on for Raw after Mania returns / debuts? Anyway, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.